Hey, welcome, fellow human beings, to the podcast Addiction, Abuse, Recovery by Matt Logan Speaks. I am Matt Logan. However, I'm not going to be your host. Our host for this podcast is Sherry Irvin, who has personal, unfortunate experience with addiction and abuse, but she has been in recovery for more than 8 years now. Part of Matt Logan Speaks, we want to just share other people's stories in the hopes that it will help you through your day, that it's just another tool in your toolbox to get you through the day. So please help me welcome your host, Sherry Irvin.
Hi everyone, welcome to Addiction, Abuse, and Recovery. My name is Sherry Irvin. With me today I have Carla Hamand. Carla is a licensed social worker with 25 years of experience. You have done all kinds of renovations, diagnostic testing for the Rochester Rochester Police Force, the Sheriff's Department. Now you are currently into private practice of your own. You're also a teacher. I've had the pleasure of taking one of your classes through the Recovery Coaching Academy, Peer Support Specialist Group. And on a personal note, we have known each other for 30 plus years. Started out in high school, went to college together, and wow, here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. So, it's great to have you here.
Thanks.
So just kind of a condensed version, what makes you a really great ally to your profession is not only do you help people with the comorbidity of dual diagnosis of alcoholism, addiction, mental health issues, but you're also an ally to this as well. You know firsthand of what addiction can do. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could kind of give me a little condensed version of why you are doing what you're doing.
I kind of fell into a lot of things. I started out, back in childhood, you have life experiences that happen, and then that kind of helps you move into a direction. We were just talking about that. And those experiences, of course, led me to want to make some changes in helping kids was my first thing. I want to help kids. And I got into a halfway house where I was working with adults, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't work with kids. I just can't do it. It was really hard. It's your heartstrings when you're working with children. So I thought, okay, I can work with adults. I can do this. But of course, again, my experiences, I think I was always a social worker. It was a part of my fiber. And then I had to get a legitimate degree in order to practice. So at one point I decided my lifestyle has to change. I wasn't sure how I was going to do that, but I thought, well, I'll go to college and see if that helps. And so I did. I went and I thought I'll be a business major and I'm going to have my own business. Had no clue what it was going to be. But then the math was really hard, to be honest, Sherry, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I started looking at the catalog on what degrees could I get that didn't require a lot of math. And social work was there. And I thought, oh, yeah, I can do that. So it took me probably 10 years to get my bachelor's degree from Winona State. And I was already in the field. Like I said, I worked in a halfway house for Zimbro Valley, and I loved the work. The hours, are hard. Working where somebody lives is very difficult, but the learning. And I think, always wanting to learn. Having an open mind and studying people. I mean, people are weird, right? We're all weird in our own ways. So that intrigued me. And so I think that was how I kind of started to work with other parts of the community, law enforcement, substance use disorder treatment, different things. And I had to learn how to navigate and work well with folks so that my clients could get their needs met. And so eventually I worked my way into Olmsted County, and I loved it. I loved it there, working for local government. And I served men primarily who were on the schizophrenia spectrum. And they also had substance use disorder. And some of them were veterans, and some of them were homeless. And so it was a difficult population to serve.
I bet.
But I loved it. And eventually, I was asked to go and work in the detention center. And they told me, my boss was Nancy Colas. She's retired now. She was awesome. And she said, you only have to be there for a year. And I thought, okay, I can do anything for a year, right? I was there 12 years.
You were a long time.
And it was the people. It was an environment where I could really flourish and do things. And my bosses gave me the permission to just do it. And so when I got in there, I started working with detainees. And the detention officers didn't necessarily know why I was there and what I was doing. I wasn't welcomed with open arms right away. But I walked in and I thought, okay, I'm going to learn how they do their jobs. I'm going to learn the business. And then I'm going to figure out, how do I fit in here? And so I figured out that there were people in custody setting who were there because of their mental illness. They were there because of their substance use disorder. A lot of it trauma, a lot of trauma. So the common goal was, how do we make the facility run well, and how do we serve people in there? And one of my mentors, Steve Roloffs, he said, Carla, this is a public health issue. He said, we're right in the middle of the community. The detention center, the government center, is right in the middle of the community. And when people leave here, they're going to be living in your neighborhood. They're going to be living in my neighborhood. And how do we make that happen so that they leave here well? They leave here better than when they came. And to be honest, that was a pivotal moment for me. It's a public health issue, right? So people are in custody setting. It looks like maybe criminal behavior, but it's really a result of the mental health issues, the trauma, and the substance use disorder. So I tried to figure out, how can I not only serve the people who have to be in there, but there are some people in there that really don't need to be there. Nonviolent crimes, maybe it was a disorderly conduct or a property damage, something like that. So where could we serve these folks? And started to think about, how could we do this? And so I started to work with the judges, and my boss helped me with that. Steve Roloffs helped me with that. They knew a lot of the influential people in the community, and I could just be the social worker. And then they greased all the wheels and made it happen. And so it got to the point where when I would walk into the courtroom, the judges would know why I was there. The attorneys knew why I was there. And we became this pseudo mental health drug court. And we just worked behind the scenes, but we would make it happen. We would give the judge options. If we don't have to keep this person in custody and we have another option, how could we make that happen? Because we all know when there's a hold on somebody or $100 bail, a lot of people can't afford it.
Yeah.
So we figured that out, and it was called jail diversion. And I started to train to become a forensic social worker.
That's awesome.
I know, it's a cool
So
title,
awesome,
right?
yeah.
I remember when I told Arlen Carey, the director at the social work program for Winona State, he said it's a sexy title. But in the moment, it was really a way to liaison between mental health system and criminal justice system. And how do you serve the person while keeping the community safe? And so I loved being in the middle of that. And I loved working with all the people. The criminal justice system, the mental health system is really quite large. So I thought every year there's probably about, not a lot, 10, maybe 12 people who come into custody setting because of their illness. They come in there because of their in withdrawal or their inactive addiction. Could we get ahead of that? And if so, how would we do that? And it was probably about 2004, so I'm dating myself a little bit, but it was about 2004 that I dropped the idea. And nobody wanted to do it. Jail diversion was not the right language. People didn't like it. It was like, people, if they break the law, they need to have a consequence. Why would we divert them?
Yeah,
So
it's black and white, no shade. Yeah.
Right. And so I had to figure out a way to do this. And it was other people that we came to the table. If it's just a language thing, I can figure that out. Well, Minneapolis then started doing crisis intervention in their law enforcement. And they used the Memphis model. And so I became a big proponent in not recreating the wheel. If something's already out there and it's working and it's tried and true, why not? So they traveled to Memphis and Minneapolis, and then they started the Crisis Intervention Team Association. And they did training for law enforcement. And so we got buy-in from the leadership in law enforcement that officers could get trained, and they had permission to take the time that it needs to work with somebody who has mental health issues. It does take time to de-escalate and to use your words and to communicate and figure out what's going on, and then to problem solve the situation right on the street and using other resources than just bringing people to custody setting. And so we said, okay, we're going to do the training in 2004, and it happened in 2007. So I don't know, Sherry, if you know a lot about the law of attraction. It's like whatever you put out there comes back to you. I just kept thinking, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And eventually Nancy said, I've got some money. And it's, if you can put the training together, maybe they'll come, right? Mm-hmm. So we had the money, we put the training together, and they came. Law enforcement, 30 officers sitting around the table for a 40-hour academy with lecture and role play. And the role play was amazing because we hired crisis actors who, when the officers used the skills well, they would de-escalate. And when the officers did not use the skills well, they would jack it up. So it was real life. And the first day, everybody was saying, I'm here because my boss told me I had to be here. I thought, well, I'll take it.
Okay.
They're here.
Yep.
And we did the training, and it went off without a hitch, and the surveys were amazing. It sold itself. The training sold itself. And it has still going on to this day. Mm-hmm. I worked with Megan Schuler, Jim Schuler, Casey Moylanen, Frank Ohm, and all of us together, and they're still doing it to this day. So that says a lot to me, that it's an important part of our community. And what we also saw was, like in the movies, you have SWAT team and you have hostage negotiation team. They were getting called out less because officers were getting in there and they were able to de-escalate a situation, and they were given the permission to take the time that it needed to do that, and no longer did we have to go into a hostage situation or a suicidal situation. So that was amazing, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Makes the community better, hopefully safer, and people, the human cost to put somebody in custody setting who has mental illness, who has trauma, it's very high. The cost is high. And then there's the fiscal cost. It costs a lot of money. You're in the emergency room probably, and then back to the jail, and then medications. And we had our own little mental health team right in the detention center, but it's better to get people help in a psychiatric hospital. So, yeah, crisis intervention team all the way, right? I love it. And I think it's part of my legacy. It's part of what I wanted to do and leave for the community, and I just am amazed that it's still going to this day. What else?
And now you're in. So, what made you, obviously the success with that, but then what made you venture out on your own? I mean, I know that you're in your own clinical practice now. I mean, there's a certain amount of burnout too when you're working with the sheriff's department and you're working with all, I mean, I know how law enforcement is too, and it's, there's a high.
There is high burnout. I think if I could do anything now, it would be, you know how when you have your license, you have to take so many classes in ethics, so many classes in supervision or whatever. I think self-care, we miss the boat for social workers, for law enforcement, for all the first responders, the caregivers. We miss the boat on how do you take care of yourself? How do you minimize your own risk for trauma? As a first responder yourself, and you don't know which one of the situations you go into that's going to cause the trauma, because you see it, then all of a sudden it's that one. And so I was fortunate enough to have people around me. Steve Roloffs was a big one who would say, Carla, you got to go home, you got to take a week, get back to your basics, and then come back all fresh and new. And so we would do that for each other. But I think we really missed the boat on that. So that would be something I would like to see happen on a grander scale.
I know when I was doing the first responder and EMT thing too, that the stress debriefing could have been a little bit more, it was lacking. It was more you just need to kind of deal with it. Okay, take the rest of the day off. And okay, well, I've just seen this kid's leg taken off in a power take, and then anything when you're dealing with children,
Yes.
that's always so yeah, I do agree with you. I think that there could be more done with the briefing of and the self-care. Yeah. It's huge because you get so involved in it. I mean, I know they say you shouldn't take it personally, but how can you not?
Right.
So
Right.
it's, so what made you kind of go from that? I mean, I
Well,
bet that was hard because I know back in the day, I'd heard all about what the innovations that you were doing within the sheriff's department. I knew that you were really enmeshed in what you were doing. So
yeah, I loved it. And then I thought, well, there was a management position that opened. Nancy Colas was retiring, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll advance my career. I did go back and get my master's degree. I went to the University of Minnesota and got my license in clinical social work. So I thought, well, I'm going to be a manager. I don't regret it. I don't want to say that, but it just wasn't my thing. And so after about 6 years of doing that, I thought, okay, I've got to do something else. This is not where my heart is. This isn't where I need to be right now. So I started, Susan Brust was a nurse practitioner in the community, and she said there's a clinic out in Casson. It's called Stage by Stage, and Karen Stage is a woman in long-term recovery and a participant of drug court in Dodge County, and she went and got her degree and her license in alcohol and drug counseling, and she started her own company. And that was the other thing. If I didn't do forensic social work, I wanted to do rural social work. So here I was in a situation where I could maybe do some rural social work and keep doing forensic social work because Dodge County had a drug court.
yes.
So I went out there and I sat with Susan and we did a diagnostic assessment with a gal. And I remember after the woman left the room, I was like, I'm back. This is the deal. So I put in my time. I retired from the county, and everybody had a party, and we celebrated. But it was bittersweet for me. It was part of my identity to be that person, and so it was an adjustment. I did not go quietly. was trying to grip on
No,
dear
really?
life. But once I made the move, it was amazing, and I just love what I'm doing. So most of the people I see are in outpatient treatment, and Stage by Stage is considered an MICD treatment program, so mental illness and chemical dependency. And I'm the mental health professional. And people go in, they have assessment. If they're recommended for treatment there and they want to go there, then they'll come and see me for a diagnostic assessment. And then if they want to do therapy with me, I can keep seeing them. And so because of the trauma, I would say probably around 90% of folks in treatment settings have some trauma or stress-related disorder. So I started getting more training in the trauma area, and so I'm now certified to do trauma therapy. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of symptom management, teaching skills. We forget how to use our breath. Especially when people are anxious, we forget to use our breath. We forget that we have basic skills within us to help us feel better. And so the brain wants the path of least resistance, and oftentimes that's substance use. And so how do we put something else in place of that? It's hard, but I like helping. And so working with the drug court population as well, and Judge Williamson is in there, and now Judge King, and I worked with them in Olmsted County, and I loved it. And then Eric Thompson, I work with him, and with Jamie, and I won't even try to say her last name. But it's been a really amazing transition and move. And I get a lot of people who say they like what I'm doing there, so validation. So I think I'm going to stay. I think I've been there a couple of years now and building my practice. And I think it's a nice place to be. It's a nice community. And folks come from Owatonna, Albert Lee, a lot of different cities come all the way out to Casson just for Stage by Stage and to do therapy with me. It's amazing.
Well, and I think it's really important too, especially on, you were talking about the rule setting. There are so many, I think that the rural areas don't get hit enough. Everybody's more into the city. And that was the one thing that I liked with recovery's happening is that they're sending their peer recovery specialists. They have them more in the rural, trying to get them set up in the rural area. I think that's really important. I think that population of people gets missed a lot.
Yeah, it's a barrier. Distance is
Yes.
a barrier. Transportation is a barrier. Some people don't have their driver's license, maybe DUIs or whatever. But in working with Missy Rebalton, she's the peer in our community. She's getting her 8-year medallion today.
Oh,
Isn't that amazing?
that is so cool.
So she's there. She works her butt off, and she's got her feet in the street and boots on the ground, and she's right there doing really the grassroots social work that you and I went to school to do. And so social work has changed a lot over the years. It's no longer like that anymore. And that's why we signed up, because we wanted to be in people's homes and teaching them how to have a good quality of life. And so the peers are starting to help people navigate the system in AA and NA, and getting on entitlement programs if they need that, or housing, and just getting people places and breaking down the barriers to get them there. So it's amazing to work with them and with Karen. She and I think a lot alike, and I think we complement each other in our work.
To have that counterpart there, that you have the licensed alcohol drug counselor, and then you have you dealing with the mental, because we both know that with addiction there's always that mental component. They go coincide. That's the way it is. So this way you're kind of hitting both. So do you see yourself doing any more innovation stuff that within your practice? I know that you developed, and you're in research and development as well. You've developed a lot of diagnostic tools that you use in you've used them with the sheriff's department, law enforcement. Do you see any that you're developing now with your own practice?
I would like to wiggle in to the police department there a little bit and the sheriff's office. I did do some work in the Steele County Detention Center for about a year and a half. And to be honest, the drive from Rochester is really what kept me from doing that. But I would love to do some critical incident stress debriefing or crisis intervention in the rural area if I could. I'd like to start working with individuals who are first responders, law enforcement or social workers, and just people in the field and who then want to do therapy, or they need some stress management skills or coping skills or what have you. So I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think the field, especially the field, the people that are at the field, like paramedics, first responders, that's like really important because they're literally the first responder. They're at the front line, and so many of them don't know, especially I remember when I was kind of a rookie. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. You're already on that adrenaline kick, and it's just kind of like, and then the come down. That I think that we were just talking about that stress debriefing is huge. Because like I said, some of the calls that I went on was like, what just happened there?
And then you're right back into the next call.
Yeah, and then the tones go off, and you don't, and that is the one thing that when those tones go off, you don't know what dispatch is going to send you out on. I've been sent out on my share of alcohol calls, overdose calls. No call is the same.
Right.
So I mean, so the adrenaline kicks in, and then it's and like I said, it's just I think that stress debriefing would be really huge. So with the mental health issue and stuff, how do you and the schizophrenia piece? I mean, that is huge. For people to specialize in that. I think that so often goes unnoticed because there is adult onset. And, I mean, it's just an interesting population of people that you serve, I mean.
Yeah, I tell them, come as you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me what you think I want to hear. Just come as you are.
Yeah.
Be you. And we'll do this together. I walk beside people and just kind of help them to lead their own path, but help them make better decisions, maybe informed decisions. I love doing the academy. You brought that up with Recovery is Happening. The students who are in there are just like sponges, soaking up the information. It's a tough academy. The 40 hours, it's hard.
Yes, it is.
But, the payoff is so great for our community to have peers out there knowing how to do the work and to do it well. And, again, the self-care, I think, could be a little bit better, not only for peers, but for all of us in the field.
Well, I know that your training that you gave me, I was one of those sponges, so to speak. The training that you gave me with Recovery's Happening, having that collaborative with mail, as you know, we have to go in, carry a pager. We get the call at any time during the night. Those skills are going to help me. I'm because not only do you have the alcohol piece, but you could be dealing with somebody that does have schizophrenia, or just to know the language, how to talk to them, what personality am I getting,
Oh my gosh, the language, Sherry. We have so many acronyms in our world and law enforcement has a language, social worker has a language, nursing has a language, and that's part of the training, right? How do you speak to each other so that you can understand? And so I say acronyms because it's kind of a running joke that you're spitting out all these acronyms and nobody knows what you're talking about. So Megan, one of my colleagues, she came up with an acronym cheat sheet for everybody. and law enforcement would use it and kind of know what we were talking about. But the jargon is really important. You know, you don't want to go into an ER as a law enforcement officer and say something inappropriate about somebody's mental health. You know, that just drives the stigma. You want to go in and say, this is what they display. Their behavior is this, and use the correct language as best as possible so they can get their needs met. And then you sound legitimate, you know. So that's a big piece of it. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I just know that the different language, it labels you too. And, you know, that's what we're trying to change within the recovery community is the language that's being used. You know, so often you hear the felon, the addict, we're trying to change that language piece. Well, my gosh, girl, I could talk this forever with you. And I appreciate so much all the work that you've done. I mean, you were on the cutting edge when that wasn't available. And I remember, hearing about your legend, so to speak, and everything.
Stop.
Well, no, I mean, it was really huge, the tools that you created, because you got the people out on the streets and they were able to learn how to deal with, the drug use and how to handle in the crisis intervention, and so I appreciate all the hard work that you have done throughout the years, and good luck with your practice. I hope that you continue to keep doing that. I know that you have made a lot of positive changes, and you've helped a lot of people throughout the years, and I hope that you continue to do that. So thank you so much for being here, and just the length of time we've known each other. It's been an honor to, still know you.
Our world keeps bringing us back together.
Back together again. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of Addiction Abuse Recovery, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sure you did, as I did. I want you to know that if you want to follow along, just go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Apple Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just search out Matt Logan Speaks. We have all kinds of great content for you. Hit the notifications button so that when something new comes up, you're the first to know. Have a great day.